Hi, this is Anthony, and welcome back to my show. As always, before I begin, please click the subscribe button below. It really helps me out and it doesn't cost you anything. Thanks so much. If you've been paying attention to my channel, you see most of my videos are about investing in individual stocks, and those are the videos that get the most views. I sometimes talk about other side hustles like selling collectibles on eBay, and often those videos would take a lot more work and get far fewer views, at least at this time. But my goal for this channel is to be more of a personal finance rather than strictly a stock investing discussion channel, although certainly investing in stocks is a large component of personal finance for many people, including myself. But today I wanted to put together a short video that I've been intending to do for quite a while. I want to address a couple topics that I see a lot of on other financial channels on YouTube. To set this up, we, especially in the United States or in Western open-style democracies, have been conditioned to believe that people generally are truthful and sincere, and that if you read something in the newspaper, then it's probably true, and if you see it on the television news in the evening, it's probably true. And so when we see well-spoken, good-looking people on YouTube talking about subjects we're interested in, we believe what they say. There's a couple risks in that. One, anybody can put on some nice clothing and speak clearly in conventional English and say whatever they want, even if it's a complete lie. But what's even more misleading, and this is unintentional, is when those well-respected people that you follow on YouTube give advice that sounds like accurate absolute advice, but in fact is only accurate for some people and not for most of their viewers. Let's look at the FIRE movement. FIRE is an acronym for Financial Independence, Retire Early. Basically, it's people who want to get to a point of financial independence earlier than a normal retirement age. To do so, they save an incredible percentage of their income and generally put it in well-diversified mutual funds, and then are able to take out 4% or less of their assets from the stock market each year to live off of. The reason that 4% is important is there's been a number of studies that have been done to indicate that if you spend 4% or less of your nest egg that's invested in the stock market, over the long run, even with stock market declines, you should not run out of money. So let's analyze FIRE. Does it really work? Well, of course, for some people it can work. But when you watch people talk about it in videos, you need to think about everything they say and everything about their situation and ask yourself, can the average person replicate that? I think that in just about every situation where somebody has talked about FIRE and have actually done it, they have a high-paying software job, and often they have a spouse in the same industry, and because they can work remotely, they don't have to live in an expensive area like San Francisco. So let's say you have a couple, they both meet in college, they're both very smart, they get high-tech degrees, they get married, one of their parents has an extra room in their house, so they live there for free. At a very young age, they're making a tremendous amount of money in the software industry. They decide not to have kids or put off having kids for a while. They're making $150,000 or $200,000 a year each and work very hard and have very few expenses because they're living with mom and dad. Well, two people doing that for 10 years can save up a lot of money and then buy a little house out in the desert and can retire and live quite comfortably on what they've saved and invested in the stock market. But is that scenario typical for the average person? Are you lucky enough to graduate from college without student debt and are able to get a good high-paying job right away? Are you lucky enough to find a compatible spouse that also makes a lot of money and is willing to save a lot of money? Are you able to get a job in a cheap area to live in or a job where you can telecommute? Are you lucky enough to have family members who give you free or inexpensive housing for extended periods of time? So is FIRE achievable for the average person? Not in the way that it's presented in many of these YouTube videos. It is possible for some intelligent people with great jobs to achieve early retirement. We're talking about retirement in their 30s or 40s. Certainly it's possible, but it's realistically a very small slice of the population. And sometimes when you watch these videos, you find out that they retire from their job young and then start their own business. There's nothing wrong with that, but running your own business is not being retired. Being comfortably retired is not having to work for money at all, but living off of your savings and passive investments. So those stories can also be misleading. Another thing that I wanted to briefly mention was a recent video that I saw by Abdaal. I don't always agree with everything that he says, but I think that there's a lot of good information that he provides that many people can find useful in their individual cases. The particular episode that I take partial issue with was the one that he did on whether it was better to buy or rent in the long run. He showed some numbers that indicated that under certain circumstances, renting could be better than owning a house or an apartment. And in the scenario that he presented, the numbers bore out the contention. But it was based on the premise that the difference that the person saved by renting, rather than paying a mortgage, would be invested in the stock market consistently each month over many, many years. The problem with that is even the most financially disciplined people can struggle with consistently investing in the stock market on a monthly basis. And the reason for that is what happens when inflation starts heading up and companies are starting to lay off people in anticipation for a recession. And a couple thinks that it's a prudent idea to save a little bit more money in their emergency account. If a couple had 6 months of expenses saved up in their emergency fund and inflation goes from 2 to 8%, as it has in the United States recently, then it would be prudent for them to set aside more money just in case something happens, because almost everything that they need to spend money on is going to cost more than it did last year. And what if one or both of the couple loses their jobs? All the more reason to prudently put aside more money in an emergency fund. Now, if they had a mortgage, they may not have extra money to set aside, but if they're paying rent, which is less than what their mortgage would be in the scenario, and they had been putting the difference into the stock market, they may think to themselves, let's just set aside some more money in cash, especially as the markets go down now, and we'll restart investing in the stock market after a couple months. That's probably the prudent thing to do, but the issue is that it's going to be a lot of one-off things that come up that make it hard to be putting all that money aside in the stock market. So in the long run, they come out ahead as renters rather than buyers in that scenario. And by the way, I think that for many, many people, being a renter makes more sense than being a buyer. If you're in a relationship that may not last, if you have a job which may abruptly end, if you're in any type of situation where you might need to move out of a living situation and back in with relatives or relocate to another part of the country for a job, then living in an apartment gives you greater flexibility. You give 30 days notice and you're out of there. If you own a house which you bought at the top of the market and the housing market starts to collapse, so now you're underwater on your mortgage and you lose your job and need to relocate, that's much more difficult if you own a house than if you rent. And that scenario is extremely common when there are declines in property values as the economy takes a hit. So my point here is somebody that you respect on YouTube may give advice that is good in certain circumstances, but not necessarily in your circumstances. If something may apply to you, then sit down and run the actual numbers for yourself. Follow their reasoning, but put your actual numbers in rather than the numbers that they give, and see if your situation will match their scenario. Okay, that's all I wanted to say for today. I'd love to do more personal finance and side hustle videos, ones that challenge you to come up with your own strategies for achieving your own goals, inspired by some of what you see on YouTube or from books, but ones that are based on real numbers that are applicable to your situation. So those are my thoughts. What are yours? I'd love to hear from you. Please leave your comments in the comments section below. If you disagree with me, please feel free to point out the weaknesses in my arguments. Hopefully by now you've subscribed to this channel and liked the video. I would love it if you looked at my other videos. Hopefully click the like button on those and leave a comment, even a short one. All those things really help me out in building a following. As I always mention, this is not investment advice, and I'm not an investment advisor. I'm just some guy on the internet that you don't know making YouTube videos that hopefully provide some entertainment. But I try to create entertainment that gives you a starting point where you can do your own research and potentially find stocks that might have some place in your well-diversified long-range portfolio. Since this channel is not yet monetized, if you want to help me out, I sell small collectibles on eBay. Things like old stock and bond certificates, coins and banknotes, stamps and postal items, and books, along with other things such as Masonic items. You can find all my eBay items with my username stock_tycoon. If you're interested in buying silver coins as collectibles or investments, I usually have some listed. If you're interested in investing in gold or silver as a commodity, I have a few YouTube videos that explain how you can easily do that, plus some of the pitfalls in doing so. I'm on Instagram at AnthonyRRMills. You can follow me there. Thanks for watching and good luck in investing.